Welcome to Dead Reckoning. I'm Jay Friesen here with Dr. Brian Mattson. Every week at the Fieldhouse Cafe, looking at the finer points of where the Christian faith meets the issues we face every day. And last week we discussed why the Bible is all about food, and as promised, we're going to be looking at this week what makes Christianity's take on food vastly different from all the other religions. Brian.
Well, Jay, actually, fundamentally it has to do with what Jesus himself said about food. One time he was having a conversation with some religious leaders of the day, and they were talking about these very kinds of issues. What makes a man clean or unclean? And Jesus makes a distinction that is really religiously revolutionary and profound. I think that sometimes we don't see it as revolutionary and profound because Jesus' teaching on this matter was so successful that it actually shaped the very world that you and I live in. But it was really quite revolutionary at the time. Jesus, in this conversation, this occurs in Mark chapter 7, says that it is not what is outside of a man that defiles him. It's not something that you consume that defiles you. The defilement is already within. It is what comes out of a man that defiles him. In other words, the stuff, the food, is not in and of itself a moral issue. That's not going to defile you. And so basically what Jesus was saying was that stuff is not the problem. The problem lies within. And of course, that's the very problem Jesus himself came to conquer and overcome in his death and resurrection. But this is quite revolutionary and profound and different and unique. If you think about all of the other religious options, you're always running up against food prohibitions. You can't feed beef to a Hindu. You can't give pork to a Muslim or a Jew or bacon. You can't serve an alcoholic beverage to a Buddhist. You can't give a cup of coffee to a Mormon. I mean, why are we seeing this all throughout the spectrum, that they all have certain prohibitions, certain food requirements? You can't eat this and you can't eat that. Why is that? Well, that's what I really want to talk about today. In many world religions, particularly, I'm thinking of Eastern religions like Hinduism or Buddhism or ancient Gnosticism, which nowadays goes more by the name of the New Age movement or the neo-pagan movement. In those worldviews, the material world itself, matter, is really problematic. In their perspective, we are actually spiritual beings, sort of trapped in a bodily husk, as it were. And our bodies and the material world we live in are sort of necessary evils, but the idea is that we need to be enlightened and transcend our bodily existence in each of those religions. And so it's not at all surprising that if your basic worldview is that matter's a problem, that food is going to be a problem, stuff is going to be a problem. And so that's why we keep running up against these prohibitions in all of these religions. You can't have pork, you can't have beef, you can't have coffee, and that sort of thing. But I also think it goes quite a bit deeper than that. I think that there's a certain guilt or insecurity involved. It's almost as though as human beings we're kind of a family with a really deep, dark secret from deep hidden in our past. You know, our first parents sinned by eating forbidden fruit. And I almost think the crafting of these rules is an insecurity and sort of a self-justifying act where we say something like, eat forbidden food? Who, me? Look, I don't touch the stuff. I don't touch coffee. I don't touch alcohol. And we make these rules as almost a self-justifying act where we're rigorously conforming to a standard of our own making so that at the end of the day we can pat ourselves on the back. But Jesus says the stuff is not the problem. Christianity doesn't believe the material world is a problematic place because, as the first article of our creed says, God the Father Almighty is the maker of heaven and earth. He created all things, and He created it very good. It's not the stuff that's the problem. It's the sinful human heart that's the problem. The stuff doesn't produce idolatry. Our idolatry produces our attachment and our addiction to the stuff. It's inside out, not outside in. So food prohibitions, at the end of the day, from a Christian perspective, food prohibitions are a way of distracting and downplaying our real problem. It's offloading our real problem onto the stuff. Our real problem is ourselves.
Thanks, Brian. And next week, let's not get too carried away with making that preferred diet a law. Thanks for thinking about things with us, and please join us here every week on Dead Reckoning TV. If there's something you'd like discussed with Brian and I here, please email us or send us a message on Facebook or hit us up on YouTube. Let us know what you'd like to see and what you'd like to hear. I'm Jay Friesen, and this is Brian Mattson, and this is Dead Reckoning TV.
The moral categories of right, wrong, righteous versus unrighteous does not attach to food in a Christian worldview. Now, wise versus foolish can attach to a Christian worldview. It's probably not a good thing to eat a Big Mac for every meal, okay? But wise versus foolish is not right versus wrong. Preferences are not laws.